fans if you'd like to know a White Sox fan, but I'll ask you that a little bit later.
Okay.
Counting down from 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Barring some 1995 California Angels collapse, the Milwaukee Brewers are the National League Central champions. And here with me to talk about the Brewers as they make their run towards the postseason is longtime Brewers fan Hunter Quinn. Hunter, I really appreciate you being here, talking about the Brew Crew. How are you feeling right now?
I love that intro because I can't see a collapse with this team. And, when the Brewers started out, I didn't put any money on the Brewers in Vegas before the season started. So that's kind of how my expectations were for this season. I was like, hey, man, if it's 81-81, that's just how it goes. Like, all right, that's fine. I think we were doing okay, and everything kind of went okay. We had that big series against San Diego in the beginning of the year, and that kind of perked a few people up. But really, we didn't do a whole lot. When we went out and got Willy Adames, I thought that was like, all right, we're doing something, because they couldn't really figure out the middle of the infield. Keston Hiura has been a complete disappointment, halfway through the season. He'd gone down to Double-A, I think, once or twice. And we had Colton Wong, which is kind of up in the air. Couldn't figure out what we got at the shortstop position, and really had – for years, we've had a problem at first base. We just haven't had, Jesus Aguilar was good, and I'm thinking he's doing okay in Miami, and they're going to be sellers at some point. Why don't we just go and get Jesus Aguilar back? Well, it turns out you get Willy Adames, who changes everything. Daniel Vogelbach has come in and done really good things. And then who knew that we were going to get Rowdy Tellez, who nobody in Wisconsin had heard of before he had become a Brewer. All right. And all those guys have paid dividends. Now, obviously, Willy Adames going from a sub 200 hitter with Tampa Bay to going to, I don't know, some people say he's an MVP candidate. I don't really see that. But hey, if they want to talk about that, that's the kind of impact that guy has had, not only on the field, but you see that guy just constantly straddling that fence in between, into the dugout. He's always the top guy, first guy out of the dugout when somebody hits a home run. It's incredible what he has done for the team. And, they had a really good stretch right at the end of June into July where they won 11 straight. Everybody just kind of realized that this team is for real. And now they're 34 games, I think, over 500, which is just ridiculous because we're not used to playing less than meaningful games, I guess, from this vantage point. I grew up in the 80s and early 90s when we had a lot of bad Brewers teams. Man, there were a lot of times where there would just be a July collapse where you'd lose 11 of 15 or something like that. And, it just all the dreams and hopes of me collecting baseball cards every year was just, all right, well, it's going to be another one of those years. And we just weren't playoff contenders at that point. But now seems like Wisconsin's been, hit with this really good streak over the last decade where Packers are always contenders. Bucks have an NBA championship now. And now the Brewers are runaway winners in the, NL Central. And really, I don't know anybody who wants to see them in the playoffs.
I was going to ask you that. Before we go a little more into the postseason aspect, since they're so well ahead, how did you become a Brewers fan? Was it just by just by growing up in the region, or what was the main attraction to the Brewers?
Oh, it was purely, I live 20 minutes outside of Milwaukee, and I grew up, my dad is a big baseball player. He grew up in Connecticut, and where he was 1960s Yankees and obviously the Red Sox, rivalry and everything. And then I think I started playing baseball really young and got into it, collected baseball cards, played baseball every summer. All the kids, I mean, we had our entire, little league, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. We had our entire team within our neighborhood. And so that was summer camp for us, was baseball every day and just come home, when the sun started setting and, listening to Bob Uecker pretty much every night as part of my upbringing was a pretty cool experience. And like I said, there weren't a whole lot of playoff runs in the late 80s, early 90s, but it just got me to appreciate, those good years. And there was, you had Paul Molitor, Robin Yount, Jim Gantner, a couple of guys like Cal Eldred, who's a solid pitcher. Ben Sheets was a really good pitcher. And then, going into the, Jeff Jenkins and, into even Ryan Braun, the early years of Ryan Braun, where you had Prince Fielder and, a couple of playoff runs in the 2000s. That was pretty solid. But I was pretty much hooked from the beginning with the Brewers. And I never really even thought about rooting for another team.
I have to ask, what is the most random name of a Milwaukee Brewer that pops into your head from your experience watching? What's one that comes?
It's got to be Sixto Lezcano. I mean, what? Like, I don't even know. Like, it's got to be Italian, I think. I don't know. I've never heard anybody else on the planet named Sixto. But hey, that guy was, part of the early part of my years as a Brewer fan, and it's just, I don't know how that guy got, that's just the weirdest name maybe I've heard in Brewer history. Rowdy Tellez is all of a sudden up there on that list now.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. I was wondering that, because the name that popped in my head was John Jaha, and I always think about him. And I think of him. He was I know he was more of a first baseman. I think it was a DH, and those times that lineup of Kevin Seitzer, Pat Listach, Darryl Hamilton, Jose Valentin at short when Listach moved to second, to center field, Fernando Vina, Surhoff playing third, and maybe corner outfield, David Nilsson, Mac Matheny, Matt Niesky.
I'm having like 93 flashbacks.
I follow the Royals in 94, so as an 11-year-old, there's nothing else left to do but watch TV and watch ESPN. And I would, especially with the unbalanced schedule back then, that's all I would see. The Brewers would come into town all the time, and so I had those names.
John Jaha is just right in the middle of all of those 270-pound white guy first baseman who struck out 46 times for every home run they hit. They all batted .230. Rob Deere is, I think he played outfield most of his career, but I remember, the Kevin Seitzers, all those guys who were just overweight first basemen who were good for, 30 dingers, but also like 180 strikeouts, something like that every year. I remember John Jaha. I've got baseball cards of his stashed away somewhere in my basement.
I have to make one more mention before we move on to the playoffs. It's funny how you could just say from the 92 season to the 93 season, how Paul Molitor was the MVP, because you saw the huge success they had in 92 under Tom Trebelhorn, and then he goes to Toronto, and then it just goes down.
Oh, it was painful. I do remember that. That was like, I think 92 was like the one real chance we had, and it just fell apart. And, it didn't go well. And then all of a sudden you're just left with, all right, what are we going to do now? Is this like, it happens what does this happen every 10 years? Because 82, 92, like, am I looking at another 10 years? I'll be in college by the time they're in the playoffs again. And that's almost what happened. So, I mean, it was definitely appreciate the tough times. And we had County Stadium, which a lot of people called Third World Country Stadium. in the 90s, because that place was absolutely disastrous. You talk about what the Oakland Coliseum is now. It's terrible, and it was really bad back in the day when I was growing up. So that was the one day I got my dad won an auction or a raffle or something, and he got a what do you call those? Like a suite at County Stadium. And the most vivid memory I have of the Brewers is walking on this sketchy catwalk, and I'm walking down as like a 10, 11-year-old, and in bright yellow pants and a jacket, Bob Uecker crosses my path, and my dad goes, "You know who that was?" I'm like, "That's Bob Uecker." I go hightailing it back to him, and Mr. Uecker, can you sign this ball? I had a ball because I was going to the baseball game, and he signed the baseball, and couldn't have been nicer. And that was the last time I think I went to County Stadium. Probably in like 93, 94 maybe. But yeah, they improved a lot. I got to cover the Brewers as a part of my TV internship after freshman year of college, and that was the first or second year of Miller Park, which was really cool. Which I don't know when I'm going to turn it into AmFam Field or whatever, but it'll be Miller Park to me for a long time.
I mean, guaranteed rate is still New Comiskey to me, and
New Comiskey, old Comiskey.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting just talking about that, and made me think, because we had visited Milwaukee in 18, and it was very, very exciting just checking that all out. I mean, and after this recent swing in the Midwest, it's like, at least I know I posted like, Midwest teams, Chicago, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, be like Milwaukee and call your, and do sausages, or be like Chicago and do beef hot dogs. I couldn't deal with pork hot dogs.
Everybody's got a knockoff of the sausage race now. And the only thing that even comes close is that in Atlanta, Mr. Freeze guy. I think that's pretty entertaining. I live in the Twin Cities now, and it's not the same. And I don't know who approved the Twins getting a new stadium without a roof on it. I can't tell you how many times they postponed for rain. I'm like, postponed for snow, man. You cannot have a baseball game in March or April in the Twin Cities. And good thing they're never going to make the playoffs, because then they'd have to deal with home baseball in October, and that's just, that's brutal.
I mean, that was the history of the Twins. Moved from Washington, first few games, get snowed out.
Yeah.
And then, you deal with the Metrodome. I know it's not the greatest place. It was great for 98, for 87 and 91, but it wasn't, it was outdated, but
yeah. They're used to losing. I listen to a lot of sports talk here, and they're pretty used to losing between the Twins and the Timberwolves and the Vikings. So it's a losing mentality here, and they're just they're kind of used to it. And I don't know. I still think that the Twins and the Indians and the White Sox should start with 3 weeks on the road every year, just as a penalty for not having a roof on their stadium. That's what they should do every year.
I mean, and you think some of the Northeast teams, Baltimore's never bad. Worst case, you may have an occasional rain thing, but in the one snow game that happened against Cleveland, ironically, but other than that, it's been great weather every time. But as we go into this, was there a point where you were sort of pessimistic about the Brewers' playoff chances, or
beginning of the season? They were like 40-1, I think, 40-1 to win the World Series. They were right in the middle of the pack, and I was like, all right. I didn't really have much of much stock in the Brewers. I decided to buy the MLB.com package so I could watch every game. I started watching every game, and clearly that was the difference. My watching the team, that obviously made the difference. And they were good from the start, and then they just kept getting better and better and better. Their hitting was putrid at the beginning of the year. I think a lot of teams were going through that, but to have a really, really good solid rotation and bullpen, and then you have your team batting like 210, 217, something like that at the beginning of the year, first 2 months, you're like, if they can just bat 250 as a team, they would be unstoppable. And that's what has happened. You know, Yelich has kind of come around and he's improved a lot. So I think my the lowest expectations were at the beginning of the season, and they've just grown constantly, over the last 4 or 5 months. So
I know you're very optimistic as it going on. Outside chances the Brewers can win 100 games. I know they're 89-55 right now, but do you feel like there's a good chance they can win 100 games?
I can't remember how many Pirates games they have left. I know they play St. Louis and Pittsburgh, so that's gotta be some wins there. I know they play the Mets, so I'd put money on them winning 100. That would break a record, right? I think the record for single season wins is 96, I want to say. So that would be incredible. I mean, that's, I think that everybody's they've been sort of the somehow under the radar. I know it's a small market. I know the Dodgers are sexy. I know the Giants are sexy. Like, I know those teams are really solid, but the Brewers have winning records against both of them. I don't really know how the Braves stack up, but I really think that nobody wants to see the Brewers in the playoffs. I really think that they're going to be that team that, surprisingly, it's actually surprisingly similar to the Bucks. They've got one of the best records. They've got an MVP or multiple Cy Young candidates. They've got Willy Adames, who is an MVP candidate, apparently. I don't know how they don't get more attention other than the fact that they're in Milwaukee and not in LA or New York or Chicago.
To you, who's the team that may concern you in the playoffs that you might be worried about? I know, like I said, the NL West has 3 potential teams coming out of there. You
can't say the Padres are coming to the playoffs. Come on, they've been absolutely self-destructing over the last 3 weeks. It's been terrible. I think the Reds might squeeze in, which would be interesting. But I mean, you got to think that everybody who's a baseball fan is looking forward to National League Championship Series with the Dodgers and the Brewers. That is Walker Buehler and Scherzer and Kershaw against Corbin Burns and Woodruff and Peralta and Hader and Williams. I mean, that is going to be a bunch of 2-1 ball games, and it's going to be great.
Your thoughts on the recent no-hitter that occurred? I mean, that had to be huge, just being able to get to notch that no-hitter.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember 87 was the one and only Brewers no-hitter with Juan Nieves, and I didn't even know Juan Nieves is like a 5-6-year-old. So it's been an elusive thing for many years. The Brewers have had a lot of good pitchers. They had CC Sabathia for half a season, and we thought, hey, there's an outside chance. And they've had good good pitching from time to time. But this year has been, I mean, I don't know. I saw a comparison from a sports writer that compared the 92 Braves starting 5 to the Brewers starting 5 of this year. And Brewers compare pretty darn well to them. So to have that happen sort of puts a stamp on the Brewers pitching this season. I think it's been incredible. I think the stats are ridiculous. You've got Burns and Woodruff and Peralta all under 3 ERA, 2.7 ERA. You've got great bullpen pitching where you can have a short start from, there's been a couple of guys that have been thrown into spot starts, and you've got 6 innings of no runs out of the bullpen. So I really think that, Hader's one of the best closers, if not the best closer in baseball. And to have Corbin Burns finally get some big national attention for striking out 14 in 8 innings, and he walked one guy to lead off the 7th, I think, and that was it. I got to watch the last 4 innings of that game, and it just looked like so many games that Corbin Burnes has pitched. I mean, he was dominant, and his hair is ridiculous. I just think that it's it was an exclamation point on what really has been a deserving year for him to get some attention nationally.
What is the best way to describe the identity of the Brewers? Just by looking at some of the stats outside of really, I look Avisel Garcia really standing out there, and of course you have Colton Wong and a few of those other guys. But what would you say the biggest identity of those guys are? Because a lot of the big names are hurt, a lot of them are underperforming. Looking at the roster, I see Kane is coming back. I see Yelich is hitting 256 with 8 homers. Jackie Bradley Jr. is 165 with 6 homers and 29 RBI in 120 games.
Hey man, what is the identity? Needs to bat 8th. Somebody needs to bat 8th, okay? And Jackie Bradley Jr. is raising his hand, okay? That's the interesting thing. The Brewers have a lot of years they have been a heavy hitting team, and this year is exact opposite. I mean, you've got the pitching staff just carrying the heavy load almost every game. You'll have them score 10 runs on occasion, but man, the pitching staff has really, really carried them. And to have a bunch of guys, I mean, at one point, I think they had 3 or 4 guys in the starting lineup batting under 200. I mean, it was really, really slim pickings as far as who can you count on for run production. And it was tough to watch sometimes. But when you got to win games, 3-2 and 4-2 and 2-1 and that kind of thing, that's what the Brewers have done this year. And when your team is only batting 217, your pitching staff has been lights out, and that's what has led them to the record that they have. They're 34 games over 500, whatever, and it's because of the pitching staff. So you had what, 4 all-stars, 4 pitching all-stars? Is that a regular thing? I don't think so. And to have, some good hitting from guys like Garcia, guys like Wong, to have Yelich have a really off year, especially the first half was really bad. I don't think they have a guy batting 300. So I know that batting is down around the league, and 9 no-hitters and whatnot is kind of a major league record and that kind of thing. But I think it's been a really interesting year to see the Brewers kind of flip where their strengths are, and to have this amazing pitching staff really lead them the entire year. It's been great.
Yeah, it feels sort of like a 1960s baseball team where it's the strength is the pitching, and you'll get the timely hits. But as we look at the World Series prediction, who do you have coming out of the National League? Who do you have coming out of the American League? Who wins the World Series, and in how many games?
It's hard to go pick against the Astros out of the American League. I think that's kind of I think the safe money is on the Astros. I think they've been pretty consistent throughout the year. And like I said earlier, I think it really comes down to the Dodgers and the Brewers. I really, really, really want to see a small market team play in the World Series, and why not the Brewers? I mean, I think this year you have, pitching wins championships, I think, and I really don't think anybody wants to play them. I really don't think. I mean, on a short series, if you've got Woodruff and Burnes and Peralta matching up against Buehler and Scherzer and Kershaw, I think that's what everybody's going to want to see. And I think the Astros are going to just be sitting there waiting for Game 7 of the NLCS. So Brewers, Astros, and I can't help but go Homer and go Brewers in 6.
Who do you think would be a challenge to the Astros in the American League? Just curious.
I don't know if there really is. I mean, who's going to make the playoffs? I mean, I don't know. I think I don't know. I mean, Red Sox, Yankees, it's not the same old NL East. It's just not. I'd like to see some. I'm always a fan of fresh blood. I'd like to see somebody new. I would have loved to see, I love seeing Tampa Bay do so well a couple years ago. I would love to see at some point Toronto coming up, but I don't really see anybody challenging the Astros. I really don't.
I also want to say this. I feel stealthily everybody forgetting the White Sox, and I feel like they're just coasting just like the Brewers are right now.
I don't know. I just don't. I don't know. Maybe I'm salty because they took our Yasmani Grandal. I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know what to say because we just gave up 0 hits to the Indians over 15 innings. So I can't really say that they've had a whole lot of challenge. Detroit is obviously terrible. So the White Sox division's terrible. But I unless I go through their record against other playoff teams, I'd have to say that I guess it could be the White Sox and the Astros. I think that'd be kind of cool. White Sox have not had a really good run in a long time, so I'd like to see that. That's interesting to me. I think everybody still hates the Astros, so maybe the Astros are the new most hated team in Major League Baseball. The Yankees can take a year off or two, so that'd be fine. But I really think that, I think you could stake a claim for the White Sox. You take the White Sox, I'll take the Astros.
I really appreciate it. Before we wrap this up, and we'll talk a little off air once we finish this up, do you have anybody you want to give shout outs to? Anyone, anything you want to promote while you're here? How can people reach out to you and talk to you about the Brewers on social media?
I'm at DJ Hunter Quinn on Instagram and on Twitter. I do music radio as my full-time job. So talking sports every so often is pretty cool. I like betting sports. I like talking sports. I like going to Vegas a couple times a year and putting some money down on a couple of the futures bets. So hit me up on Twitter at DJ Hunter Quinn.
All right. For everybody who's been watching, I really appreciate Hunter Quinn being my guest here. And of course, you just got a new follow as I just started following you as well.
Thanks,
but
man.
For everybody who's been watching, I really appreciate it. We're going to have another string of interviews this week as it goes along. We're going to try to get the Braves. We're going to get the Mets. We're going to get the Mariners. We're going to get a few other. We're still looking for a few White Sox and A's and Giants fans who can come on and talk about it. And Rays fans too, because I think I got a Blue Jays fan locked down. But for everybody who's been watching, I really appreciate it. For my guest, Hunter Quinn, and for all these interviews I've done tonight, I really appreciate it. I'm Earl Holland. We'll catch you guys a little bit later this week.